How long does it take to make an axe? That's one of the most common questions I get. And the honest answer is, it depends. So in this video I'm forging the same axe 3 times. 1 hour, 1 day and 1 week. Can you really make an axe in just 1 hour? And how big of a difference will there actually be? Let's find out. So I'm starting with the 1 hour axe, but before we begin, let's lay down a few ground rules. First, I am allowed to heat up the forge beforehand, otherwise I'd waste 15-20 minutes just waiting for that to get hot. And secondly, I can use all of the tools and tricks that I have available. And thirdly, once the clock starts, it does not stop. And when it hits 0, time is up. Alright, the forge is hot, I think I'm ready, let's go! So I'm starting by punching the eye of the axe using my forge press. Now you can absolutely do this with hand tools, but that might take anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes, depending on the size of the axe you're making and how comfortable you are. With the press, I can usually do it in one single heat, which is very helpful when you're in a bit of a time crunch like I am right now. Here we go. Next step is drifting the eye, making it larger. I usually start with a smaller drift and then move up in size as the eye gets bigger. Once again, this is where the forge press really shines. Then I switch to the bigger and in this case final drift, and I use that while drawing out the lugs or ears as I call them on the power hammer. Kom igen. Since I only want the lugs on the bottom of the axe, I use the angle grinder to remove the ones on the top. After that, I insert the drift once more and do some final detailing on the eye. It's 38 minutes left and I had to flip it now and start working on the blade, so it takes a little while for that to heat up and it's freaking me out a little bit, I'm not gonna lie. Time is running out quicker than I expected, and once the front of the axe is hot enough I move over to the power hammer. Not to draw out the blade just yet, but to start working on the transition from the eye to the blade. First by thinning it out under the hammer and then by forging in a set down on the forge press. It's 33 minutes left and I really need to make a blade now. So I'm going to try to draw out the blade on the hammer as fast as I can. Then I'm going to use my special little dice here and see if we can speed up the process. Mind you, we need to have a finished axe in 30 minutes. heat treated, grinded, and on a stick. So I'm a little bit stressed out right now. So the dies that I'm using have a profile similar to the axe that I'm making. So by using them, I'm almost forcing it into shape. It's definitely not perfect and you still have to correct everything by hand, but it's saving me a lot of time. Once I'm happy, well, not happy, but happy enough with the blade, I go back to the final drifting of the eye, just to make sure the eye is properly shaped and that the axe is reasonably straight. I mark out the profile of the edge using a soapstone pen and then remove some of the excess material with my angle grinder. I then go to town roughing in the edge with a flat disc on my small angle grinder. I mean, at least it looks like an axe. Okay, so it's 15 minutes left, and I'm just about to harden the axe, and then we're going to temper it, and then we're going to sharpen it, and then we're going to hang it, and hopefully we'll do that in 15 minutes. We'll see. So I'm tempering the axe, and I'm letting the heat from the forge get to the pole of the axe and then travel to the front of the blade, and hopefully I can see the temper colors change, and therefore and that way temper the axe instead of using an oven or so. Yeah, that'll do. Kom igen lite nu. Nej. nej. Två, ett, noll. Okej. So I didn't oil all the handle, but anyway. So that was probably one of the most intense axes that I have ever forged. And there's a lot of things that could have been done better, but hey, considering the time limit, I guess it's pretty okay. Let's move on to the next one. Alright, so it's time for the one-day axe. Now just to be clear, what I mean by one day, it's not 24 hours, but rather a work day. So I'm going to set the timer for 8 hours. Alright, the forge is hot. Let's begin. Now, 8 hours might feel like an ocean of time compared to one, and while it definitely does allow me to do things a little bit differently, it's still just one day, and I'm filming every step of the way. Anyway, the first step to forging this axe is exactly the same as the one before. I punch the eye in the forge press, drift the eye, draw out the lugs, etc. The big difference is that I can do it with a little bit more focus and patience. Alright, so for this axe I'm going to use the taco technique, and the taco technique basically means that I'm going to cut open or split open the edge of the axe body, and then I'm going to insert or laminate an edge steel. So I'm going to put aside the axe body right now and start working on the edge steel. To prepare the edge steel, I forge it into a wedge shape. I also try to mimic the curve of the axe edge as closely as I can. The goal is to get the fit as snug as possible. Once the edge steel is ready, it's time to cut open the axe body. The fastest and easiest way to do that, in my opinion, is with a cutting disc on an angle grinder. Once the slot is cut, I heat it up again and hammer it shut. Whoops! What that does is slightly draw out the walls of the slot, tapering them and thinning them just a bit. That helps with the fit, makes the forge weld a little bit easier, and gives a much smoother transition from the body to the blade. I then split open the slot once more and insert the edge steel. I then press the slot shut using the jaws of the vise. After that I flux it, bring it up to forge welding temperature, and then it's time for forge welding. To remove the excess material, I use a hot chisel and cut it off. I then clean up the cuts with some hot rasping. And can we just take a moment to appreciate hot rasping? It's so much more efficient and honestly deserves way more credit than it gets. If you don't have a rasp already, get one. Have you ever heard of the 80-20 rule? It's the idea that most of the results come from a small part of the effort. And forging is kind of the same. In the beginning it feels like everything is moving super fast, and most of the forging happens here. But it's the last 20 or even 10%, the tiniest of details, that makes all of the difference. At least in my opinion. Alright, so it's been about 40 minutes now, and the axe is now cool enough for me to hold it without burning myself, which is very good because now it's time to clean it up and get it ready for heat treatment. And here, almost immediately, I get to enjoy the fact that I took the extra time during forging, because now I barely have to grind anything. Just a quick touch up with the file and we're off to grind the edge, which is very nice if you don't like grinding, like me. It's time to harden the axe, but unlike the 1-hour version, which I quenched in water, this one has a spring steel edge and therefore needs to be quenched in warm oil. So once the oil is preheated, I slowly bring up the edge to temperature and quench it in the oil. After that, I temper it in the oven. Since tempering in the oven takes a little while, at least an hour or so, I need to start working on the handle. Now, I could play it safe and go with the store-bought hickory handle, but I am a sucker for Swedish ash, and besides, who remembers a coward? So this video is sponsored by my friends over at Tormek, and they are giving away a Tormek T8 and their axe jig to one of you, my dear viewers. Now, if you're interested in joining the giveaway, simply subscribe to Tormek's YouTube channel, the link is in the pinned comment, and then come back here and leave a comment including the words Tormek Sharp. The giveaway will run for 3 weeks, and then Tormek will go through the comments and pick a winner. And the winner will then be announced in my pinned comment. All the necessary information will be in the pinned comment, exactly when the giveaway ends and so on. So make sure to read the pinned comment. Alright, thank you so much, Tormek. Let's get back to the video. So it's actually the next day now, and the reason for that is that I finished the axe yesterday and I had about 1 hour and 12 minutes left. And I thought, hey, I don't have to use all the time if I don't want to. But then I started thinking that there is still one thing missing on this axe, and that is a proper sheath. So I thought I'd take the rest of the time to make one. Right, so the one-day axe is finished and I have 30 minutes to spare. And I gotta say, I'm very happy with how this turned out. Now, if you're interested in learning more about forging axes, I actually wrote a book called Beginner's Guide to Forging Axes. The link is in the description. Anyway, let's move on to the 1 week axe. Alright, so it's time for the 1 week axe. Now once again, just to be clear, what I mean by a week is a work week. 5 working days, rather than 7 24-hour days. Let's begin. So for the 1 week build, I want to do something a little special. I'm making the entire axe out of pattern welded steel. I start by stacking alternating layers of 15 and 20 and 1095 into one large billet. Before bringing it up to welding temperature, I take it out and apply some flux. to prevent oxidation and scale from forming. Now you have to do that while the steel is still relatively hot, otherwise the flux won't melt and form that protective shield. Once it's back in the fire, I bring it up to welding temperature and I forge weld it using my press. Once the billet is forge welded and drawn out, I'm going to do a restack. That means that in this case I cut the billet into 4 pieces, stack them back together and repeat the entire welding process. What this does is that it increases the layer count of the billet. So I started with 24 layers and now with the new stack the layer count should be closer to 90 or somewhere in that ballpark. Now, I'm well aware that 24 times 4 is 96, but some layers may have been lost due to grinding and scale forming, so it's better to go with a rough count. So the 90 layer billet is now complete. Now, I did actually make one more billet in between heats. Not 90 layers, just the original 24. I quickly forge welded that together and drew it into a square bar. The idea is to cut it into 4 pieces and use them for the edge steel. Now in my mind I want to play around with twisted pattern welded bars. So I take them out one by one and twist them, 2 clockwise and the other 2 counterclockwise. And the idea is that I'm then going to restack them, alternating the twists and forge weld them back together. That should leave us with a pretty cool pattern for the edge steel. That's enough for one day. I'll see you back tomorrow. Alright, so it's day 2, and yesterday we forged this 90 layer-ish billet that hopefully will be turned into the body of the axe. And we also forged this multi-bar twist thing that hopefully will become the edge of the axe. Anyway, if all goes well, today is the day we forge the axe. Now, just like with the previous 2 axes, I am going to punch the eye. But since the layers are running in line with the hole we're about to punch, I am a little concerned that the extreme pressure might tear them apart. So to help prevent that, I drill what are commonly referred to as pilot holes. Now pilot holes are a great option if you need help keeping your holes straight and centered, and in this case, they should also relieve some of the pressure on the layers. Now, due to the fact that I am extremely scared that the layer should split, I start by punching the hole by hand. And voila, we have a hole. From here it's pretty much exactly the same as the one-day axe. I drift the eye, draw out the lugs, cut off the top lugs, clean it up slightly, forge the transition in front of the blade, forge the set down, and begin drawing out the blade. There really isn't much more to it. So let's move on to the edge steel. Now, I don't really know what the pattern looks like just yet, so I start by grinding it to bare steel, and then I put it back in the fire to warm it up. The heat tends to reveal the pattern slightly, and that way I can decide which portion I want to use for the edge. I'm not gonna lie, cutting with the chisel in line with the layers was pretty scary. Anyways, once the edge steel is fitted, it's time to flux it and forge weld it. It's day 3, let's grind the axe. So I have some bad news. You see, yesterday when I forged the axe, I accidentally forged the eye section a little bit too close to finish, which normally is a very good thing, but not in this case. You see, when you're making pattern welded steel, you generally have to grind, polish and etch the surface to reveal the pattern. And I can't really do that here because the margin is a little bit too thin, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of making the whole axe out of pattern welded steel. Anyway, hopefully I will learn from my mistakes and hopefully the axe will look pretty cool. Anyway, we most definitely will find out very soon. So the axe has now been hardened and it's currently tempering in the oven, and that's where I'll leave it for today, and I'll see you back tomorrow. Alright, so the axe has now been hardened and tempered, and there are quite a few things on today's agenda, but the biggest and definitely most boring of them all is going to be grinding, polishing and hand sanding. So let's get to it. So I start by quickly touching everything up with a belt grinder. That's mostly to remove the outer layer, forge scale and so on, to get down to bare steel. The rest of the polishing will come from hand sanding. It's quite a time-consuming thing, but in all honesty, it's good to be forced to slow down sometimes. Anyway, I start with a 180 grit paper and work my way all the way up to a sloppy 800 grit finish. Alright, so the axe is now etching in the ferrichloride, and the way that I usually go about this is that I leave it in the ferrichloride for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then I take it out, rinse it and give it a quick polish with some fine grit sandpaper, and then I simply repeat that process till I'm happy with how it looks. Now, if you are well versed in the pattern welded steel universe, you probably have heard of the instant coffee etch. If not, you may think that I'm joking, but alas, I am not. It's actually a legit etching method that helps bring out some more contrast in the pattern. I have no idea how it works, but it is surprisingly effective. Alright, so I'm going to leave the axe and the coffee overnight, so I'll see you back tomorrow for the final day. Alright, it's the morning of the final day and it's time to make a handle. And as luck would have it, I just received this beautiful piece of Purple Heart in the mail. So let's get to it. So warm linseed oil is probably the best protection for a handle there is. And the way that I store it and heat it is in this old frying machine. You know, to make French fries. So if you have one to spare or want to stop eating French fries, I can't recommend this enough. Total game changer.
So there we have it, a 1 hour axe, a 1 day axe, and a 1 week axe. I am very curious to hear which one is your favorite. Personally, the 1 day axe is my favorite. I just think it turned out really well and it feels amazing in the hand. And my least favorite is probably the 1 week axe. It turned out okay and all, it just didn't turn out quite as I had imagined it. Now this video was heavily inspired by this one from Nate from the internet and this one from BM Sculptures. So thank you so much for the inspiration and make sure to check them out. Also remember to join the giveaway if you want a chance to win the Tormek T8. Thank you Tormek for sponsoring the video and thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.